Have you ever really stopped and thought about what money actually is? Or, what a perfect version of it would even look like? Today, we're going to explore a really fascinating concept from the Nobel laureate John Nash, something he called ideal money. Let's jump right in.
So here's the plan. We're going to start by looking at a fundamental problem in our economy, this hidden cost that comes with every single transaction. Then we'll dive into Nash's elegant solution, break down its key parts, and see how this whole theory plays out in the real world.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the idea of ideal money, we first have to go back to basics. Why do we even need money in the first place? Well, it all boils down to a very simple economic truth. Look, our modern prosperity is built on specialization. I do one thing, you do another, and together we create way more wealth than if we all just tried to do everything ourselves. It's really the bedrock of a productive society. So, if that's the case, what is it that allows this incredible system of specialization to even work? What's the mechanism that makes all the gears turn?
Exchange. It's that simple. We trade what we specialize in for the things that other people specialize in. It's the engine that drives our entire economy.
But here's the crucial point, the real friction in the system. Every single act of exchange, from buying a coffee to trading stocks, has some kind of cost attached to it. And we're not just talking about fees, but also things like uncertainty and just general difficulty.
And this creates a really dangerous domino effect. See, when the cost of exchange is high, people just trade less. And when they trade less, there's less incentive to specialize. This leads to a less productive society and ultimately makes us all poorer. So minimizing these costs is absolutely key to maximizing our collective wealth.
So if high exchange costs are the problem, what's the solution? Well, this is where the brilliant idea from John Nash comes into play.
Nash's solution was this theoretical concept he called ideal money. And he defined it as an asset that lets you transfer the value of a good across space and across time at zero cost. Just imagine a perfect vehicle for value that could move to anyone, anywhere, at any time with absolutely no friction at all.
The ultimate goal here is to basically eliminate the cost of exchange, right? To remove the barriers that stop us from collaborating. Doing that would transform our economy from a series of competitive, difficult games into one massive cooperative game, letting us maximize our shared prosperity.
Okay, so this ideal money sounds amazing in theory, but what properties would it actually need to have in practice? Well, it really boils down to two key concepts.
The first is perfect salability. That's the ability to transfer value between different people across space right now with zero loss. The second is perfect storability, and that's the ability to hold that value perfectly across time so you can use it in the future without it degrading one bit.
Now, the underlying principle that connects both salability and storability is something called liquidity. But to really understand it, we need to break liquidity down into two different dimensions, space and time.
First up, you've got spatial liquidity. This basically means that at any given moment, pretty much everyone in the market agrees on what the asset's fundamental value is. There's no confusion, no disagreement about what it's worth right now.
And second, there's temporal liquidity. This means that the asset's fundamental value doesn't just swing wildly over time. The value it has today is the same value you can confidently expect it to have tomorrow, or next week, or next year.
So how do we actually achieve that first type of liquidity, the spatial kind? What does it take for everyone to agree on what an asset is worth?
The key is consensus. When everyone believes an asset has the same value, it can change hands seamlessly. The gap between what a buyer is willing to pay and what a seller will accept, what's known as the bid-ask spread, it shrinks to almost nothing because there's just no disagreement over its value. For a perfect real-world example, just think about a diamond versus gold. A diamond's value is uncertain, right? You need an expert to spot all its flaws. That gives it low spatial liquidity. But an ounce of gold? It's standard, and its value is known by everyone. That gives it high spatial liquidity.
So there are three factors that can really supercharge an asset's spatial liquidity. First, it helps if it's easily knowable, simple to recognize and evaluate. Second, it helps if it's homogeneous, meaning one unit is identical to any other unit. And third, the ultimate boost is when it becomes the economy's unit of account, the standard we use to measure the value of everything else. And this brings us back from theory to reality. Truly perfect, ideal, zero-cost money, well, it probably can't exist. So what do we have instead?
I love this quote from the economist George Shackle.
It just beautifully sums up the entire concept. Liquidity isn't just some dry technical term. It's a shared social conviction about an asset's future value, covering both space and time.
To put it even more simply, liquidity is stability. The less an asset's value changes, both from person to person and from today to tomorrow, the closer it gets to being ideal. This leads us to Nash's final powerful idea, asymptotically ideal money. Now that sounds complex, but the idea is simple. Since no asset can be perfect, different assets are constantly competing to get as close to that ideal as possible. The asset that does the best job of holding its value across space and time is the one that ultimately wins out and becomes our money.
Which brings us to a final thought. Looking at the world today, with all the assets out there, from gold to dollars to cryptocurrencies, which one do you think best fits this description? What asset is winning the race to become the closest thing we have to ideal money?